saying this to all the people of the internet? Great. All right. Welcome, everybody. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Yadadai, da-da-da-da-da-da-dai. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Yadadai, da-da-da-da-da-da-dai. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Yadadai, da-da-da-da-da-da-dai. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Yadadai, da-da-da-da-da-da-dai. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Thank you for coming. How good it is to be together in person and on Zoom. I'm going to start off the services with a little reward for coming tonight, which is that I'm going to tell you something embarrassing about myself. How often does the rabbi open services like that? Hopefully that's a special treat. So, up until last night, I had never sat down and actually watched the whole movie of Fiddler on the Roof. I know. How did they ordain me? I honestly am not sure. But a good friend of mine who is ironically not Jewish loves Fiddler and found out that I'd never seen it. So it was a rainy night. We're sitting down. We're watching all 3 hours. This is what we've decided. And so we had this really interesting little kind of moment of cultural exchange where he, as a non-Jew, is sitting there singing along with every word of Fiddler and then pausing occasionally to ask me things about how accurate it was Jewishly, because despite knowing every word, didn't really know the cultural context. And despite me never seeing the movie, I did know the cultural context. So we had a good time, and a lot of his questions revolved around how accurate Tevye was being in his quotations from Torah. Does anyone know how accurate Tevye was being in his quotations from Torah, just generally? Any big Fiddler fans? He was not very accurate. Almost everything he made up. But there was this one moment where he quotes King David, and he says, "I am a man who is slow of speech and not of many words." And I immediately reacted to the screen and I said, "That wasn't David, that was Moses." And then someone else on the screen said, "That wasn't David, it was Moses." So, the movie was at least aware. But then Tevye said back this brilliant line, "Oi, for a man of not many words, he sure talks a lot." And I burst out laughing. And I turned to my friend and I said, "You don't understand, I'm literally going to give a sermon about that tomorrow night." So, today, we begin reading the book of Devarim, a book that literally, the title of which means words. And yet, it's narrated by a man who starts off his journey talking about how he's a man of so few words. So, it's things to sit with tonight. Where do our words come from, and how do we change along our journeys? More to come. All right, this evening I would like to invite Gary Harvey up to light the Shabbat candles. Gary Harvey, we are honoring in honor of his new job, which he just got this week. Mazel tov, Gary, to new beginnings. The blessing can be found on page 120. Oh, yeah. If you need help with the matches, let me know. continue with Shalom Aleichem, page 142. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Chasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech malachei chamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Bohem l'shalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Baruchuni l'shalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Tzeitem l'shalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. We come together now to welcome the Shabbos bride with Lecha Dodi, page 138. And we will be singing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. Leha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat ne Kabbalat. Leha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat ne Kabbalat. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmianu el hamyuhad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shemol tiferet v'letila. Leha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat ne Kabbalat. Leha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat ne Kabbalat. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nilcha, Ki hi mikorcha bracha, Merosh mekedem nesuka, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila. Leha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat ne Kabbalat. Leha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat ne Kabbalat. Hitoreri, Kiva ore kumi uri, shir daberi, Kavod Adonai alak negila. Leha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat ne Kabbalat. Leha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat ne Kabbalat. Please rise. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam besimcha uvtzechola, Toch emunei ham segula. Boi chala, Leha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat ne Kabbalat. Leha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat ne Kabbalat. Leha Dodi Lehadodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela, Lehadodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Please be seated. We continue with Hatzi Kaddish, page 144. Yit gadal v'yit gadash shemei rabba, Be'alma divrach yirutei ve'amlik malchutei, Bechaye hon uv'yomei hon uv'chayit kol beit Yisrael, Bagala bagala uv'izman kariv bimeru, Amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach, Le'olam omei almaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitramam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shemei Dekudesha B'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran balma, Meimeru, Amen. Please rise for the Baruch Hu, page 146. Baruch et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vayed. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vayed. You may be seated. We read together from the bottom of page 149. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Blessed are you, O God, who evenings the evenings, or creates the evenings. We continue with Ahavat Olam, page 150. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochteinu, u'kumeinu nasiach b'chutecha, Benismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'mitzvotecha leolam vayed. Ki heim hayenu, ve'orech yameinu, uvahem nehye yomam v'layla, nehye yomam v'layla. Be'avchatcha al tasir, mimeinu leolamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohe Ohev Amo Yisrael. Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibarta bam Beshivtecha bevetecha uvlechtecha baderech uvshokbecha uvikumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha vehayu letotafot beininecha uktavtam al mezuzot betecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru ve'asitem it kol mitzvotai Vitem Kiroshim Lelohehem Ani Adonai Elohehem Asher Hotzeiti Ethem Me'eretz Mitzrayim Liot Lahem Lelohim Ani Adonai Elohehem Adonai Elohehem Amen. As some of you may be aware, we have a Jewish holiday coming up on Monday. The holiday perhaps might be a lighthearted way to put it. We're observing Tisha B'Av this Monday. It begins Monday evening. We'll have a service here at the synagogue where we read from Lamentations. And Tisha B'Av has always been a challenging holiday, at least for me. We're in the middle of summer and suddenly we're in a day of mourning. It's a little bit of a rough transition. But Tisha B'Av really started to speak to me once I put it in the context of the high holidays, thanks to the teachings of Rabbi Alan Liu in This Is Real and You Are Completely Unprepared. He describes Tisha B'Av as this coming undone, this house coming apart that allows us to leave and go on this journey to explore who we are and take an accounting of the soul that we do every year for the high holidays. And when I put Tisha B'Av in the context of an unraveling or a coming apart, an opening of a pathway, it really starts to speak to me a little bit more. And when I was thinking about Mi Hamocha in this context, had to bring it back to Mi Hamocha, I realized it's the exact same thing. The sea comes apart and makes way for a path for us to find redemption and new possibility in a new land. We pray Mi Hamocha, page 158. Yai lai lai la lai la lai la lai la lai yai lai lai la lai la lai la lai yai lai lai la lai la lai la lai la lai yai lai 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 yai lai 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 Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Yai lai lai la lai la lai la lai la lai, yai lai lai la lai la lai la lai, yai lai lai la lai la lai la lai la lai. Yai lai 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 Malchutecha ra'u evanecha Bokei ayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam Ze Eli anu ve'amru Ze Eli anu ve'amru Adonai vayed. Adonai yimloch leolam vayed. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 yai lai 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 lai. Bishamriel, page 168. Sorry, 162. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם וריתולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם וריתולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם וריתולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם וריתולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם וריתולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם וריתולם. We move now into the core of our prayer service, the Amidah, our standing prayer. Please rise in body or in spirit. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rahel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Bezocher Chastei Avot v'Imachot, Umevi Geula Lifnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen,
Baruch Ata Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Ata Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mehaye hakol atarav lehoshia, Morid hatal. Mechalkel Chaim bechesed, Mehaye hakol berachamim rabim, Zomech noflim ve'rofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umidom elach, Melech memid umechaye umatmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman ata lechayot hakol Baruch ata Adonai mehaye hakol Ata kadosh v'shim hakadosh u'kadoshim b'kol yom yahalelu chasela Baruch ata Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We continue now with private prayer. Feel free to use the words on the page or whatever words are on your heart this evening. When you are ready to continue with our prayer service after your private prayers have concluded, please be seated. Oh, say shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, Amen. Oh, say shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, Amen. We turn our hearts now to those in our community for whom health or well-being have become precarious, with our Misha Berach prayer, which we can find on page 371. So if there's anyone in your life who you think could use this prayer, please bring them to the forefront of your mind, and if you would like, you can say their name aloud as my hand passes. For those of you present online, please feel encouraged to list the names of those who you'd like to pray for in the comments. Together as a community, we pray for the healing of Malka Tzirel Bat Devoradina, Sarah Bat Avraham, Kathleen Ford, Maya Smith, Art Ritter, Mac Russell, Eileen Abbey, Charles Apple, Charles Ronkin, Judith Schlussel, Zahava Bat Dan, Gabriel Komisar, Eliyahu Ben David Ve'elcha, Stephen Wilner, Marty Gingle, Roz Bolsky, Graham Ross, Vicky Bravo, and Jerry Berg. Again, page 371. Mi shebeirach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi shebeirach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. And now a few words of Torah. I had a meeting with a member of our community the other day, and I asked her how her summer was going, and she said, too fast. The summer just seems to be slipping by, doesn't it? When did August get here? I'm seeing fewer fresh tomatoes in the gardens and more ripe figs on the trees. Rumblings about of school starting again. Teachers and students are gathering supplies, planning meetings I thought would never come are somehow appearing on my calendar. There's a nasty rumor going around CBI that the high holidays are coming up, but I refuse to believe it. Personally, I think I'm still a little bit in denial that the summer's leaving us. My guest room is still ready for friends stopping by on road trips. My freezer is still well stocked with popsicles. I'm not ready for the joyful vibes and hot weather to be over. But the calendar has other ideas. This is a heavy weekend to be a Jew, and especially a Jew in Charlottesville. This Sunday and Monday marks the 7-year anniversary of the 2017 white nationalist rally here in Charlottesville. And Monday evening marks the beginning of Tisha B'Av, the Jewish day of mourning centered around the destruction of the Second Temple, but which encourages us to mourn all tragedies to ever befall the Jewish people. As we cling to the last shreds of summer, the calendar calls us to do anything but. The calendar calls us to remember. And so we do. Or at least we will. To use a nice summer-related metaphor, this kind of intentional, scheduled mourning always feels to me a little bit like standing on the highest diving board at the pool. No matter how many times I hurl myself off into the depths, no matter how aware I am that I'm going to come up for air again once the descent is over, I always find myself teetering on the edge, second-guessing myself. Am I really ready to fall? How is it going to feel this time when the calm, reflective surface of the water explodes around me and I just sink? There's always a moment where I think about whether or not I'm going to walk myself carefully back off the diving board and step down the ladder rung by rung. Waking up and deciding to wander into the pits of darkness is a risky thing to do with one's heart and soul. It's an interesting thing to have our calendar call us to do year after year after year. But the good thing is, we don't have to do that alone. And I mean that both literally, we do it in community, and metaphorically, we do it with Moses through our Torah portion. Just before we sink into the depths of despair, we begin the book of Devarim, or Deuteronomy. This is the beginning of Moses' reflection on his time as the leader of the Israelites as they slowly but surely descend upon the promised land. And this could be a victory lap for Moses. This could be Moses celebrating all the good things that he's done in the past, but it's not. This isn't a fun thing for Moses. He knows, because God told him, that when the people arrive at the promised land, he will die, and he will cede his position of power. Moses is remembering in anticipation of loss, and that grief carries with him throughout everything he says. The Devarim, the title of both our Torah portion and this entire book of Torah, comes from the first line, Ele Devarim Asher Diber Moshe Al Kol Yisrael. These are the words, Devarim, that Moses spoke to all of Israel. And that may sound like a mundane statement. So these are the words that Moses spoke to Israel. But there's a special irony for those of us who know Moses well, or for those of you who remember my Tevye quote at the top of services. When God first introduced God's self to Moses and told him that he would be a prophet, Moses said, Bi Adonai lo ish devarim. Please, God, I am not a man of many words. Moses doesn't think of himself as a man of words. Moses opted to not be the speaker. He had his brother Aaron speak in his stead. And now, as he nears the end of his journey, with his brother Aaron already deceased, his sister Miriam already deceased, and he is anticipating his own death, suddenly he finds the words. He has speeches, he has sermons, he has advice. He has a book that is just literally called Words. If you look at the progression of Moses' journey over time, there doesn't seem to be a moment where things shift for him. We never hear Moses say, Aaron, I don't need you to talk for me anymore. We never hear him say that he got over his speech impediment or that the words come more easily now. He just says at the beginning of the journey that words are hard, and then in the face of insurmountable grief, he finds them. Personally, I like to imagine that it didn't get easier for Moses. I like to imagine Moses delivering the 3 lengthy sermons that make up Deuteronomy, slowly and purposefully, stuttering and powering through, with those listening to him making space for all of those stumbles. The words that he shares throughout Deuteronomy vary. Sometimes he's brutally honest with his shortcomings. Sometimes he lies and covers the truth. But all his words are an exercise in vulnerability. The great Aviva Zornberg points out that within this very first parsha, within the very first sermon that he gives to the people, Moses chooses to tell the story of him begging God to spare him, and God refusing. God literally closes Moses' mouth so that he can no longer beg to be spared. In these, his last words to his people, of all things, he chooses to lead with the parts of himself that are weak and flawed. And I'll take a note from Moses here. If I'm honest, in years past, there have been times when I've faced the metaphorical high dive that is Tisha B'Av, looked all the way down at the depths and said, nope, not this year. I don't have the courage, I don't have the energy, whatever it is, I don't have it. I cannot spend a day in mourning. I cannot live up to what Tisha B'Av asks. And I've just let it be another summer day without grappling with the grief I experience as a Jew and as a human being. But the thing about grief is that the depths will always be there, whether you choose to enter them or not. If you never take the invitation to dive in, unsettle your waters, and face the depths, the feelings that live below the surface will be harder to see, but they'll still be present. Harder to process and harder to predict. This weekend, in the face of 2 heavy dates on our calendar coinciding, I wish for each of you, I wish for all of us as a community, for all of Charlottesville, that we find the diving board that's right for us. Maybe it's the high dive. Maybe it's that one that's a couple feet above the water. Maybe it's just a little cannonball with arm floaties on for safety. But however deeply you choose to engage, I want to remind you that community is here for you, both at CBI and Charlottesville as a whole. There will be a public remembrance event held by the Charlottesville Clergy Collective this Sunday. Hold on for the announcements. And a Tisha B'Av service on Monday. I truly believe that the divine timing of these 2 events, Tisha B'Av and the anniversary of the Unite the Right rally, serve as an invitation to us as the Jews of Charlottesville. As uncomfortable and intimidating as it may be, it's time to take stock of our depths and see what's beneath the surface of our grief. And once we've come up for air, dried ourselves off, and the disturbances in the water have settled to a mere ripple, hopefully there will still be time for a couple more weeks of sunshine and popsicles. Shabbat Shalom. As promised, I have announcements. Tomorrow morning, Saturday, August 10th, our traditional egalitarian minyan will be meeting at 10 a.m. We will be in this very room, so we will also be on Zoom. So please do join us for that tomorrow morning. Then on Monday, August 12th, 7 p.m., we have a Tisha B'Av Torah study and service. Rabbi Tom will lead an hour of study on the themes of Tisha B'Av entitled In the Aftermath of Destruction, Israeli Poetry Since October 7th, followed by the chanting of the Book of Lamentations. You can learn more details about the program in this week's newsletter. And on Sunday, if you would like to join for the Charlottesville Clergy Collective's Remembrance of the Unite the Right Valley, that will be taking place at 4 p.m. at the Sojourners United Church of Christ. You can find more information at cvilleclergycollective.org. We continue with our prayer service with Aleinu. It can be found on page 587. Please rise. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu kamishpahot ha'adama, shelo sam chelchenu chaim, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, vanachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yiheh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. You may be seated. We read together from the bottom of page 594. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. We bring into our thoughts and prayers those whom we have lost either in recent weeks, months, or at this time in years past. As a community, we mourn the passing of Eve Becker, Dorothy Cherkasky, Sidney L. Cohen, Howard Diamond, Nancy Diamond, Pearl Dracer, Helen Drucker, Natalie Queen, Caroline Revson, Helen Rothberg, Gerald Rosen, Carol Whitman, Ralph Eisenberg, Morris Litt, and Ida Shapiro. We honor the Shloshim, the month of passing, of Robert Epstein and Ethel Zager. If there is someone whom you are remembering this evening and you'd like to bring them into our prayer space, please say their name aloud as my hand passes you, or if you are on Zoom, please feel invited to enter their names in the comments. The Kaddish can be found on page 598. Mourners, please rise. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon uvyomechon uv'chayed kol beit Yisrael, b'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam umei almaya, yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudusha brichu, la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru amen. Thank you for joining us this evening. For all those in mourning, may the memory of those who have passed be for a blessing. As we move into Shabbat with the joy of Shabbat, simultaneously with the heaviness of the approaching anniversary of the Unite the Right rally and the approaching of Tisha B'Av, I want to close us out with Shalom Rav on page 178. Shalom Rav asks that God grants us an abundance of peace and brings a shelter over us all to protect us. And I think with the heaviness of what's been happening in years past and in years present, we could really use these words right now. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon lechocha shalom. Ki atahu melech Adon lechocha shalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam Tasim Leolam. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Please join me in Omansky Hall for Kiddush. And if you've been joining us online, have a good evening. Shabbat Shalom.